The council chamber stretched before them like an ocean of polished metal and crystal. Han Wu walked forward with measured steps, his shoes making no sound on the impossibly smooth floor. Behind him, Ji-won kept her hands clasped behind her back, trying not to show how tightly her fingers were gripping each other. The room was designed to make visitors feel small, and it worked perfectly. Above them, the ceiling curved upward into darkness, dotted with lights that looked like stars. Around them, hundreds of aliens from dozens of species watched from elevated platforms. Some had scales, others had fur or skin in colors humans had never imagined. But all of them looked down at the human delegation with the same expression, boredom mixed with mild curiosity. Like children watching insects in a jar. The far end of the chamber, seated on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive gemstone, sat Empress Veltara. She was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall even while sitting. Her skin was deep purple, marked with silver patterns that glowed faintly. 4 arms rested on the armrests of her throne, each hand displaying long fingers that ended in what might have been claws or just very sharp nails. Her eyes were completely black, reflecting the lights around them like mirrors. Hyun-woo stopped at the designated spot, marked by a circle of light on the floor. He did not bow. Ji-won stood beside him, equally straight. "The primitives have arrived," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. High Chancellor Morvaz descended from a platform to the Empress's right. He was smaller than the Empress but still towered over the humans. His species looked vaguely reptilian, with green scales and a long face that ended in a pointed snout. "Humans from the world you call Earth, you have been summoned to hear the will of the Valthrine Empire." Han-woo nodded once. "We received your message. We are here to discuss terms." A ripple of sound went through the chamber. It took Han-woo a moment to realize it was laughter. These aliens found his words amusing. Morvaz smiled, showing rows of small sharp teeth. "Discuss? No, human? You are here to listen. The Valthrine Empire has decided to extend its protection to your world. This is a great honor. Many species wait centuries for such an opportunity." "Oh, protection?" Hyun-woo repeated flatly. "Is that what you call it?" The Empress leaned forward slightly. When she spoke, her voice was deep and resonated in Hyun-woo's chest. "Your species achieved faster than light travel only 15 years ago. You have one world, a few mining colonies, and ships that are barely functional by our standards. Without our protection, you will be conquered by others. Or you will destroy yourselves as most young species do." "And what does this protection cost?" Gi-won asked, her voice sharp. Morvaz pulled up a holographic display with a wave of his hand. Numbers and images floated in the air between them. "The terms are generous. You will surrender all military vessels to Imperial Command. Your defense will be handled by the Empire. You will provide 30% of your world's resources as tribute. Imperial governors will be installed to help guide your primitive government toward civilization. Your people will be free to live their lives as long as they follow Imperial law." Hyun-woo looked at the numbers. 30% of Earth's resources. That would mean starvation in some regions, severe rationing in others. And surrender of all military assets meant humanity would be completely defenseless? "And if we refuse?" he asked calmly. The laughter came again, louder this time. The Empress's expression did not change. "Refuse?" Young species always say that word when they first encounter the Empire. They think they have a choice. Let me educate you about reality. Another holographic display appeared, showing a planet. It was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents. This was Korthan, homeworld of the Korthani people. They refused our protection. Within 5 years, they were conquered by the Draxian Collective. The Draxians do not offer protection. They offer slavery. The Korthani now work in mines on dead worlds, and their children are bred as soldiers. The image changed to show another world, this one mostly red and brown. This was Velker 3. They also refused. They tried to stand alone. Without imperial protection, they fell to pirates, raiders, and warlords. Their civilization collapsed. The survivors beg in the streets of other worlds. The Empress gestured and the images vanished. The galaxy is not kind to young species. You need the Empire, whether you understand that or not. We are offering you survival. Take it, or learn these lessons the hard way. Heian-Wu was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the assembled aliens watched with interest now. It was clear they expected him to submit, to bow, and thank the Empress for her generosity. I need to consult with my government, Heian-Wu said finally. Morvaz waved a dismissive hand. There's nothing to consult about. These terms are not negotiable. They are the same terms offered to all new members of the Empire. 847 worlds have accepted them. Your world will be 848. Nevertheless, Heian-Wu said, his voice still calm and level, I must speak with my leaders. This is a decision that affects billions of people. Surely the Empire can understand the need for proper process. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Her black eyes revealed nothing. You may have 48 hours. Return here with your answer. But understand this, human. The Empire's patience is limited. If you attempt to flee, if you attempt to prepare for war, if you do anything except accept our generous offer, the consequences will be severe. Your world will be blockaded. Your colonies will be seized. Your ships will be destroyed. Do you understand? I understand completely, Heian-Wu said. Then you are dismissed. Heian-Wu turned and walked back toward the entrance, Ji-Won beside him. The eyes of hundreds of aliens followed them. The silence was heavy, broken only by the sound of their footsteps. They passed through massive doors that were easily 20 meters tall. Guards stood on either side, wearing armor that gleamed like liquid metal. The guards did not move as the humans passed, only when they were in the corridor beyond. Away from the main chamber did Ji-Won lean close to Heian-Wu. Her voice was barely a whisper. Should we tell them? Heian-Wu's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. It might have been amusement, or it might have been something colder. Not yet. Let them enjoy their ignorance a little longer. They continued walking toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Behind them, in the council chamber, the Valthrine Empire continued its business, confident in its power and its place in the galaxy. They had no idea what was coming. The humans had been very quiet during their time in known space. They had been polite, even submissive at times. The Empire had assumed this was fear or perhaps wisdom. It had never occurred to them that it might be patience, that humanity might be watching, learning, and remembering as Heian-Wu and Ji-Won reached their ship. The Diplomat pulled out a small device and sent a single encrypted message back to Earth. It contained only 3 words. They don't remember. The response came back almost instantly. Then we remind them. The diplomatic vessel moved through space at speeds that would have seemed like magic to humans just a century ago. Inside the ship, Heian-Wu sat in the conference room, surrounded by holographic displays that floated in the air around him. Each display showed something different: ancient ruins, genetic data, archaeological reports, and fragments of text in languages long forgotten. Dayun stood at the front of the room, her hands moving through the holographic controls like a conductor leading an orchestra. She was young for someone with her expertise, barely 30, but she had spent half her life studying humanity's forgotten past. Now, everything she had discovered was about to become terribly relevant. Show him the timeline first, Jason said from his seat near the window. The captain had been silent for most of the journey, but he had fought in the border wars against pirates. He understood what was coming better than most. Dayun nodded and pulled up a long horizontal line that stretched across the room. Dates marked various points along it. 12,000 years ago, she began. During Earth's last ice age, something happened. We always knew something happened because the archaeological record shows a sudden change. Humans who had been living in small tribal groups suddenly started building structures that should have been impossible for their level of technology. She zoomed in on one section of the timeline. Images appeared showing massive stone structures. We found these all over Earth. For centuries, we assumed humans built them. But look at this. She brought up a scan of one of the stones. These cuts are too precise. Too perfect. Stone Age tools could not do this. Even our modern tools would struggle. Haiyan leaned forward. He had seen these images before, but now he was looking at them with new understanding. The Valthrine. The Valthrine, Dayun confirmed. She changed the display to show Valthrine architecture from current Imperial worlds. The similarities were impossible to deny. The same angles, the same proportions, even the same decorative patterns carved into the stone. They came to Earth 12,000 years ago and started building. They were colonizing our world. One who had been standing near the door moved closer. But humans were barely evolved back then. We were using stone tools and living in caves. How could we possibly have driven them away? Dayun smiled, but it was not a happy expression. That's the question that led me down this research path. I wanted to know the same thing, so I looked at the genetic evidence. She pulled up a complex diagram showing human DNA. Humans changed rapidly during that period. Too rapidly for natural evolution. Someone was modifying us. The Valthrine were experimenting on humans? Wu asked. Not experimenting, adapting, look at these markers. Dayun highlighted several sections of the genetic code. These changes made humans stronger, more resistant to disease, more intelligent. Why would the Valthrine do that unless they needed workers? Unless they needed slaves who could survive in Earth's environment and follow complex orders? The room was silent for a moment. The idea that humanity had been genetically modified by aliens was disturbing enough. The idea that it had been done to make better slaves was worse. So they enslaved humanity? Josung said quietly. And then what? Humans just somehow won? Dayun pulled up more images. These showed ancient cave paintings and carvings. These are from sites all over Earth, different continents, different cultures, but all showing the same thing. Humans fighting against beings that came from the sky. For a long time, we thought these were just myths, gods and demons. But look at this one. She enlarged a painting from a cave in France. It showed tall figures with multiple arms, clearly not human, fighting against smaller figures that were unmistakably people. The tall figures were falling, burning, dying. Humans learned, Yun said. They learned from their masters. They stole technology. They figured out how the weapons worked. And they fought back. It must have taken centuries. Generations of humans living under Valthrine control, slowly learning, slowly planning. Another image appeared, this one showing ruins of what had clearly been an advanced structure. But it was destroyed, burned, and torn apart. We find these all over Earth, Valthrine settlements that were attacked and destroyed. The Valthrine probably thought humans were too primitive to be a real threat. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. Haiyan stood and walked closer to the images. He reached out and touched one of the holographic displays, making it rotate. Do we know how it ended? We have pieces, Yun said. Fragments of stories that survived thousands of years. Most cultures on Earth have legends about defeating gods or driving demons back to the sky. The Greeks called it the Titanomachy. The Norse called it Ragnarok. The Hindus called it the war between gods and demons. Different names, different details, but the core story is the same. Humanity fought beings from the sky and won. She pulled up one final image. It was a Valthrine text, ancient and damaged, but still readable with modern translation software. I found this in an archaeological database 6 months ago. It took me weeks to decrypt it, but once I did, she highlighted a section of the text and brought up the translation. Colony Sigma 7 lost. Indigenous population more dangerous than assessed. Recommend immediate evacuation. Further colonization attempts not advisable. High casualties. Mission failure. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Colony Sigma 7, that was Earth. The Valthrine had tried to colonize Earth and failed so badly they had recommended never. Trying again. They left, Jawan said. They actually left because they couldn't beat humans. Primitive humans, Jasung added. Humans with stone tools who learned to use Valthrine weapons. Imagine what modern humans could do. Haiyan turned to look at Dayun. Does the Empire know? Do they remember what happened on Earth? Dayun shook her head. I don't think so. Look at how long ago this was. The Valthrine Empire has existed for over 50,000 years. They've colonized thousands of worlds. They've fought hundreds of wars. One failed colony from 12,000 years ago? It would be a footnote in their history, if they even kept the records. But we kept the records, Haiyan Wu said quietly. We kept the stories. We remembered. Humanity has only been keeping written records for about 5,000 years, Dayun said. But before that we had oral traditions. Stories passed down from generation to generation. And even when the details got confused, even when they turned into myths and legends, the core truth remained. We fought the sky gods and won. Han Wu walked back to his seat and sat down slowly. His mind was working through the implications. The Valthrine had come to Earth once before. They had enslaved humanity. And humanity, despite being primitive and outmatched, had driven them away. Now the Valthrine had returned. But this time they were facing a very different humanity. This time humans had spaceships and weapons and technology that rivaled the Empire's own. This time humans remembered what had happened last time. Send this data to Earth, Haiyan Wu said. Send everything. Every image, every genetic marker, every piece of evidence. The government needs to see this before we return to the Empire. Dayun nodded and began uploading the files. The transmission would take hours, but it would reach Earth long before they did. Ji-1 moved to stand beside Haiyan Wu's chair. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Haiyan Wu said slowly, that the Valthrine Empire is about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. They think we're a young species that needs their protection. They think we should be grateful for their offer. They have no idea that they're talking to the descendants of the people who defeated them once before. Should we tell them? Ji-1 asked. Haiyan Wu smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Oh, we'll tell them. But first, we need to make sure Earth is ready. Because once we tell them the truth, everything is going to change. Either they'll back down and leave us alone, or they'll try to finish what they started 12,000 years ago. And if they try to finish it? Jae-sung asked. Haiyan Wu looked at the captain with eyes that had gone very cold. Then we'll remind them why they failed the first time. And this time, we won't just drive them away from Earth. This time, we'll make sure they never forget us again. The council chamber on Earth was nothing like the grand hall of the Valthrine Empire. It was practical, built deep underground beneath Geneva, protected by layers of concrete and steel. The walls were plain white, the furniture was simple, and the lighting was harsh and bright. But the people gathered around the long table were the most powerful humans alive. And the decision they were about to make would determine the future of their species. Premier Taeyang sat at the head of the table, his weathered face showing the weight of his responsibilities. He had led Earth's government for 6 years through conflicts with pirates, disputes over colony rights, and the constant challenge of uniting a planet that had spent most of its history divided. Now he faced something far worse. Around the table sat representatives from every major nation and colony. To his right was Admiral Sojin, commander of Earth's defense fleet. She was in her 50s, her hair cut military short, her uniform decorated with medals from 3 different wars. To his left sat Dong Haiyan, the ambassador from the Mars colonies. A man who had made his fortune in asteroid mining and his reputation by fighting off raiders with nothing but mining equipment and determination. Haiyan Wu stood at a podium, holographic displays floating around him. He had spent the last hour presenting Dayun's research, showing the evidence of the ancient Valthrine invasion, explaining what it all meant. Now he waited for their response. The silence stretched out painfully. Finally, Dong Haiyan slammed his fist on the table. We should attack them now. Right now, before they realize we know. Hit their fleet while it's still in our space. Destroy every ship and send a message that humanity will not be conquered. That would be suicide, said Min-Su, the representative from Earth's Asian coalition. They have 847 worlds. We have 1 world and a few colonies. Even if we destroyed their fleet, they would send more. And more, until we were crushed. Then what do you suggest? Dong Haiyan shot back. That we surrender? That we hand over our weapons and our resources and hope they treat us kindly? They enslaved us once. They'll do it again. Admiral Sojin raised her hand for quiet. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried authority. Both of you are wrong. We're not going to attack blindly, and we're not going to surrender. We're going to use the advantage we have. What advantage? Minsu asked skeptically. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1? Sojin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. They don't know we remember. They don't know we've been preparing. And most importantly, they don't know what humans are capable of. She stood and walked to the holographic display, pulling up new images. For 300 years since we first discovered the Valthrine ruins on Earth, we've been preparing for this moment. Every military doctrine we've developed has been based on one assumption, that a superior alien force would one day try to conquer us. New images appeared, showing military installations hidden in asteroids, weapons platforms disguised as civilian satellites, and shipyards built inside moons. We didn't build our military to fight other humans. We built it to fight an enemy that was stronger, more advanced, and more numerous than us. We built it to fight the Valthrine, even before we knew who they were. Premier Taeyang leaned forward. Show them the rest. Sojin nodded and pulled up more displays. Our entire fleet doctrine is based on asymmetric warfare. Hit-and-run attacks. Guerrilla tactics. Targeting supply lines and infrastructure rather than engaging in direct battle. While the Valthrine have been building massive battleships designed to intimidate and control, we've been building small, fast ships that can strike and disappear. She changed the display to show troop numbers. We've trained every colonist in basic military tactics. Every mining ship carries weapons. Every space station has defense systems. The Valthrine think we have a small military. They're wrong. Every human in space is a potential soldier, but is it enough? Asked Young Mi, the chief strategist. She was younger than most people in the room, barely 40, but she had proven her worth by outmaneuvering pirate fleets that should have destroyed Earth's early colonies. Even with all our preparations, can we actually win against an empire of 800 worlds? Win? Sojin shook her head. In a straight fight, no. We can't win. But we don't need to win. We need to make the cost of conquering us higher than they're willing to pay. She pulled up casualty projections. The numbers were horrifying. Millions dead on both sides. If the Valthrine invade Earth, we'll lose eventually. But we'll make them pay for every meter of ground. We'll fight in the cities, in the mountains, in the oceans. We'll use every weapon we have, including ones they don't know exist. Dong Haiyan looked at the projections and nodded slowly. Scorched Earth. If necessary, Sojin confirmed. We'll destroy our own infrastructure rather than let them take it intact. We'll poison the wells. We'll booby-trap the ruins. And we'll never stop fighting. Not for years. Not for decades. Not for generations if that's what it takes. That's not a victory, Minsu said quietly. That's mutual destruction. Exactly, Premier Taeyang said. And that's why they might choose not to invade at all. If we can convince them that conquering Earth will cost them more than it's worth, they might decide to leave us alone. Young Mi stood and walked to the display. She pulled up different data, showing Valthrine military deployments across their empire. I've studied their tactics. The Valthrine Empire conquers through intimidation. They show up with overwhelming force, make demands, and most species surrender without a fight. When they do fight, it's usually short and brutal. The Valthrine crush resistance quickly and move on. She highlighted several worlds that had been conquered in the past century. They don't do long occupations. They don't do guerrilla wars. Every time they've faced extended resistance, they've eventually pulled back. It's not worth the cost to them. They have 800 worlds to manage. They can't afford to tie up military resources in endless conflicts. So we make ourselves too expensive to conquer, Haiyan Wu said, understanding dawning. We show them that taking Earth would cost them years of fighting and millions of casualties. We make the price so high that they decide it's better to negotiate. But we have to be careful, Youngli warned. If we humiliate them, if we damage their pride too much, they might attack anyway just to prove a point. We need to give them a way out. A way to back down without losing face? Premier Taeyang nodded. That's where you come in, Haiyan-Wu. You're going to go back to the Valthrine Empire and tell them the truth. All of it. You're going to explain that they invaded our world once before and failed. You're going to explain that we've spent thousands of years preparing for their return. And then you're going to offer them a deal. What kind of deal? Hen-Wu asked. Recognition, Taeyang said. We acknowledge them as a powerful empire. They acknowledge us as a sovereign power. We establish borders and trade agreements. Neither side conquers the other. Both sides benefit from peace. They'll never agree, Dong Haiyan said. Their entire empire is built on conquest. If they back down from us, other species might get ideas. Then we make sure they understand the alternative, Admiral Sojin said coldly. She pulled up one more set of data. Sejun, show them what your people have accomplished. A new hologram appeared, showing a man's face. Sejun was the head of Earth's intelligence service, a position that officially didn't exist. He was thin and unremarkable looking, the kind of person who could disappear in a crowd. But his eyes were sharp and calculating. For the past 5 years, Sejun said, we've been infiltrating Valthrine space. We have agents on 50 of their worlds. Not just observers. Agents with access to critical infrastructure. Power grids. Communication networks. Transportation hubs. The implications hung in the air. If war came, Earth could strike deep inside Valthrine territory, causing chaos and destruction far from the front lines. This is our insurance policy, Premier Taeyang said. If they attack us, we don't just defend Earth, we take the fight to them. We destabilize their empire. We show every conquered species that the Valthrine can be hurt. That could backfire, Min-Su warned. If we attack their civilian infrastructure, we'll be no better than them. War is war, Dong Haiyan said harshly. You don't win by being nice. We're not trying to win, Haiyan-Wu said quietly. We're trying to avoid fighting at all. That's the point. We show them what we're capable of, and then we offer them peace. We give them a choice, expensive war or profitable peace. Premier Taeyang stood. We vote all in favor of Haiyan-Wu returning to the Valthrine Empire with our full response. Every hand went up. Some faster than others, some more reluctantly, but all of them rose. Then it's decided, Taeyang said. Haiyan-Wu, you have your mission. Tell them who we are. Tell them what we remember. And tell them that humanity will never kneel again. Haiyan-Wu bowed his head in acknowledgement. As he left the chamber, he felt the weight of billions of lives resting on his shoulders. In 48 hours, he would stand before the Valthrine Empire and deliver a message that would either save humanity or doom it. Behind him, Admiral Sojin began issuing orders to the fleet. Every ship moved to combat readiness. Every weapon system came online. Every hidden base began preparations. If war came, humanity would be ready. The dice were about to be thrown. The council chamber looked exactly as it had 2 days ago. The same polished floors, the same distant ceiling dotted with artificial stars, the same hundreds of alien species watching from elevated platforms. But something felt different to Haiyan-Wu as he walked across that vast floor. This time he was not here as a supplicant hoping for mercy. This time he carried the truth. Ji-1 walked beside him, her military bearing more pronounced than before. She wore her uniform now instead of civilian clothes, and the medals on her chest caught the light. Behind them, 3 steps back, Dayun carried a data storage device that contained every piece of evidence. They had gathered. Empress Veltara sat on her throne, all 4 of her arms resting casually on the armrests. High Chancellor Morvis stood beside her, and today he was joined by a new figure. General Cretan was a massive creature covered in thick armor plating that might have been natural or might have been cybernetic. His species was one of the Valthrine Empire's most successful warriors, feared across known space. The humans return, Morvas announced. Have you come to accept the Empire's generous offer? Han Wu stopped at the same circle of light he had stood in 2 days ago. But this time, he did not wait for permission to speak. No, he said simply. We have not come to accept your terms. We have come to present our own. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. Several aliens stood from their seats. Others made sounds that might have been laughter or might have been outrage. The Empress's expression did not change, but her black eyes focused on Hyun Woo with new intensity. Your own terms? Morva said, his voice dripping with condescension. You are one world. You have no right to make demands of this empire. We are not making demands, Hyun Woo said calmly. We are presenting facts. Facts that your empire has forgotten. Facts that we have remembered for 12,000 years. He gestured to Yun, who activated the data device. Holographic displays erupted into the air around them, visible to everyone in the chamber. Images of ancient ruins appeared first, scattered across multiple planets. Then images of the same ruins on Earth. The similarities were impossible to deny. These structures exist on 17 worlds in your empire, Hyun Woo said. We know because we've been quietly surveying your territory for the past 3 years. These structures also exist on Earth. They're identical. Same design, same materials, same construction techniques. Do you know why? The chamber was silent now. The Empress leaned forward slightly. Because your people built them, Hyun Woo continued. 12,000 years ago, the Valthrine Empire attempted to colonize Earth. You built settlements. You enslaved the indigenous population. You treated our world as your property? More images appeared. These showed genetic data, complex strings of code that floated in the air like ribbons. You modified human DNA, made us stronger, smarter, more resilient. You needed workers who could survive in Earth's environment. You needed slaves. General Cretan moved closer to the displays, studying them intently. His expression was unreadable behind his armor, but his body language showed tension. This is ridiculous, Morvas said. We have no record of such a colony, don't you? Dayun pulled up a new display. This one showed Valthrine text, ancient and damaged, but still readable. This is from your own archives. We retrieved it 6 months ago from a database on Arcturus Prime. It's not very secure, by the way. You should work on your cybersecurity. The text translated itself into multiple languages so everyone in the chamber could read it. Colony Sigma 7, lost, indigenous population more dangerous than assessed. Recommend immediate evacuation. High casualties. Mission failure. The words hung in the air like an accusation. Several aliens began talking at once, their voices overlapping. The Empress raised one hand and silence fell immediately. Even if this is true, she said slowly, it was 12,000 years ago. Ancient history. It has no bearing on the present situation, doesn't it? Hyun Woo's voice was still calm, but now there was steel underneath. You invaded our home. You enslaved our ancestors. And we drove you away. Your colony failed because humans, primitive humans with stone tools, learned to fight back. We stole your technology. We adapted. We survived. And we won. He walked forward, stepping out of the circle of light. No one tried to stop him. For 12,000 years, every culture on Earth has remembered that war. We called it different things. The war against the gods. The fall of the Titans. The battle between heaven and earth. Different names, same memory. We remembered that beings came from the sky and tried to enslave us. And we remembered that we defeated them. The images changed again, showing cave paintings and ancient carvings from across Earth. All of them depicted the same basic story, humans fighting against beings from the sky. You forgot us, Hyun Woo said. One failed colony among hundreds of successes. A footnote in your empire's history. But we never forgot you. For 12,000 years, we've carried that memory. And when we finally developed space travel, when we finally found evidence of who you were, we understood. The enemy might return. And we prepared? Admiral Sojin's face appeared in a holographic display, and her voice echoed through the chamber. For 300 years, humanity has built its military with one purpose: to fight a superior alien force. Every weapon, every tactic, every strategy has been designed around asymmetric warfare. We cannot match your numbers, but we don't need to. We just need to make the cost of conquering us higher than you're willing to pay. New images appeared, showing Earth's hidden defenses, military installations disguised as civilian structures, weapon systems built into asteroids and moons. If you invade Earth, Hyun-woo said, you will eventually win. We know that, but it will take years, maybe decades, and it will cost you millions of casualties. We will fight in every city. We will fight in the mountains and the oceans. We will destroy our own infrastructure rather than let you take it intact. And we will never surrender. General Cretan's voice rumbled through the chamber. This is madness. You would destroy your own world rather than accept peace? You're not offering peace, Ji-won said sharply. You're offering slavery with better terms. And humanity has learned to recognize that offer. We rejected it 12,000 years ago. We reject it now? Se-chun's face appeared in another hologram. And we won't just fight on Earth, we have agents on 50 of your worlds. Critical infrastructure, power grids, communications, transportation. If you attack us, we attack you. Not just your military, your civilians, your economy, your stability. The chamber erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate military action. Others called for investigation. The Empress sat motionless on her throne, her black eyes moving between the displays. You would attack civilians? Morvaz said, his voice shaking with rage. You would commit such atrocities? You came to our world and enslaved us? Hyun-woo shot back. You return now and demand we submit or be destroyed. You talk about protecting us, but your protection looks an awful lot like conquest. So yes, if you force us into a war, we will fight it with every weapon we have. Just like we did 12,000 years ago. He took a breath and his voice became calmer. But it doesn't have to be war. We're not asking you to surrender. We're not demanding tribute. We're offering a different path. New terms appeared in holographic text. The Valthrine Empire recognizes Earth as a sovereign power. We establish borders between our territories. We create trade agreements that benefit both sides. We exchange embassies and work toward mutual cooperation. You keep your empire. We keep our freedom. Everyone wins. Impossible, Morvaz said. The empire does not negotiate with primitives. We're not primitives, Ji-won said coldly. We're the species that defeated you once before. The only species in your empire's history to successfully resist colonization. That makes us equals, whether you want to admit it or not. The Empress finally spoke. You dare threaten this empire? We're not threatening, Hyun-woo said. We're explaining reality. You have two choices. Choice one, you attack us. We fight. Both sides lose millions of lives. Your empire is destabilized. Every conquered species sees that the Valthrine can be hurt and starts getting ideas about their own independence. You might destroy Earth, but the cost will be catastrophic. He paused. Choice two, you recognize that humanity is not worth conquering. You accept our terms. You save lives on both sides. You show the galaxy that the Valthrine Empire is strong. Enough to choose peace when peace serves their interests. You're asking us to reward your defiance, the Empress said. We're asking you to learn from history, Hyun-woo replied. 12,000 years ago, you tried to conquer Earth and failed. Now we're giving you a chance to avoid failing again. Take it. Or don't. But if you choose war, remember that we warned you. Remember that we gave you a choice. And remember that humanity has never forgotten what you did to us. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Ji-won and Dayun followed. You have 48 hours, Hyun-woo called back over his shoulder. Choose wisely. Behind them, the Valthrine Empire's council chamber was in chaos. But Haiyan Wu didn't look back. He had delivered his message. Now humanity could only wait and see if the Empire would choose wisdom or pride. General Cretan had lived for 300 years and fought in 40 wars. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Valthrine Empire and crushed 24 rebellions. He knew war better than most beings in the galaxy. And right now, looking at the evidence the humans had presented, he knew something that terrified him. If the Empire went to war with humanity, both sides would lose. He stood in the Imperial archives, surrounded by data terminals and holographic displays. The room was deep in the heart of Arcturus Prime, protected by layers of security that should have been impenetrable. But the humans had gotten in anyway. That fact alone told him something important about their capabilities. "Found it," said Minister Haywon, pulling up an ancient file. She was smaller than most Valthrine, her purple skin marked with age spots. She had served the Empire for 2 centuries and had learned to recognize patterns in history. Colony Sigma 7, established 12,000 years ago on a planet in what we now call the Sol System. The reports are fragmentary, but what's here is damning. Cretan read the reports with growing concern. The colony had started well. The indigenous population was primitive, easily controlled. Initial construction proceeded ahead of schedule. Then things had started going wrong. Attacks on supply convoys. Sabotage of equipment. Colonists found dead with their own weapons. The reports became increasingly desperate. The indigenous population was learning too fast. They were adapting Valthrine technology. They were organizing into larger groups. The casualties were mounting. The final report was short and brutal. Total colonial population, 15,000. Current survivors, 847, requesting immediate evacuation. Indigenous resistance has made the planet untenable. Recommend permanent abandonment. 15,000 colonists. More than 14,000 dead. Killed by primitives using stolen weapons and guerrilla tactics. It was the worst colonial failure in Valthrine history, and it had been buried so deep in the archives that even Cretan had never heard of it. Why was this hidden? "Hey," one asked. "Because it was humiliating," Cretan said. "The Empire doesn't fail. That's what we tell ourselves and everyone else. But we did fail. We failed catastrophically on Earth 12,000 years ago." He pulled up more data, running simulations based on what the humans had shown them. The defensive preparations, the hidden weapons, the infiltration networks. They're not bluffing. Look at these numbers. If we invade Earth with a standard conquest fleet, we'll win. But it will take 8 months minimum, probably closer to 2 years. Casualties will be in the millions. Unacceptable, Haywon said. The Empire has other concerns. We can't tie up that many resources in one campaign. It gets worse, Cretan continued, pulling up more displays. Their infiltration network is real? I've been checking for the past 40 hours. We found evidence of human agents on 37 worlds so far. They're in position to cause serious damage if activated. He showed her the analysis. Power grids that could be shut down. Communication networks that could be disrupted. Transportation hubs that could be destroyed. If war breaks out, they won't just defend Earth, they'll attack across our empire. It won't be enough to defeat us, but it will cause chaos. And chaos breeds rebellion. Hey, one sat down heavily. If our conquered species see that we can be hurt, see that we can be fought, they'll get ideas, Cretan finished. We rule through intimidation. We show overwhelming force and most species surrender without fighting. But if humanity damages that image, if they prove we can be resisted, the Empire could face rebellions on dozens of worlds simultaneously. Meanwhile, in another part of Arcturus Prime, the debate raged in the Imperial Council. High Chancellor Morvaz was furious, his scales flushed darker with rage. We cannot allow this insult to stand. If we back down from one primitive world, we show weakness. Every species in the Empire will think they can challenge us. They're not primitive, said Council Member Tyrvaz. an ancient being whose species had joined the Empire willingly centuries ago. They defeated us once before. They've spent 12,000 years preparing for our return. That's not primitive. That's patient. They're threatening us, Morvaz shouted. They have agents on our worlds ready to attack civilians? This is terrorism. This is war, said Empress Veltara quietly. Everyone fell silent. The Empress had been sitting motionless for hours, listening to the debate, considering the options. Now she spoke and everyone listened. If we attack Earth, it will be war. Not a conquest. Not a policing action. War, real war against an enemy that knows how to fight. She pulled up the casualty projections that Cretan had sent her. The numbers were staggering. We would lose 3 million soldiers minimum. Probably more. The humans would lose billions. Their world would be devastated. But in the process, they would prove that the Empire can be hurt. And that proof would cost us far more than 3 million lives. Your Majesty, Morvaz began, but the Empress held up one hand for silence. I have reviewed the historical records. General Cretan's findings are accurate. We invaded Earth 12,000 years ago and failed. We lost 15,000 colonists to primitive humans. Now those humans have technology equal to ours and 12,000 years of hatred driving them. What do you think will happen if we invade again? She stood from her throne, all four arms spreading wide. I will not throw away millions of lives and risk rebellions across the Empire just to punish one world for defying us. That is not strength. That is pride. And pride has destroyed more empires than any enemy. Then what do you propose? Asked Tyrvaz. We accept their terms. The chamber erupted. Dozens of voices shouted at once. Morvaz looked like he might have a stroke. But the Empress's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Silence. The word echoed through the chamber with such force that everyone immediately stopped talking. I am not surrendering. I am being strategic. The humans are offering us a way to avoid war while saving face. They're asking for recognition as a sovereign power, not demanding tribute or territory from us. They're offering trade agreements that could benefit both sides. This is not weakness. This is choosing our battles wisely. She turned to look at Cretan, who had just entered the chamber. General, if we fight the humans, can we win? Yes, Your Majesty. But the cost will be catastrophic. And if we accept their terms? We gain a potential trading partner, avoid a costly war, and show other species that the Empire is strong enough to negotiate from a position of strength rather than always relying on force? The Empress nodded. Then the decision is made. Send a message to the humans. We accept their terms. We will negotiate a treaty. Morvaz looked like he wanted to argue, but one look at the Empress's face made him reconsider. He bowed stiffly and left the chamber to carry out his orders. On Earth, the message arrived in the final hour of the deadline. Han-Wu read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Then he sent an encrypted message to Premier Taiyang. They agreed. Begin treaty negotiations. The response came back immediately. Stand down, military alert. Prepare diplomatic team. Well done. 6 months later, the Treaty of Geneva was signed in the same underground chamber where Earth's leaders had debated how to respond to the Valthrine ultimatum. Representatives from both sides gathered around a table, not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. The terms were clear. Earth recognized the Valthrine Empire's sovereignty over their territory. The Empire recognized Earth and its colonies as sovereign powers. Trade agreements were established. Embassies were exchanged. A demilitarized zone was created between human and Valthrine space. Most importantly, the Empire agreed to pay reparations for the ancient invasion, a symbolic gesture but an important one. Han-Wu stood beside Empress Veltara as the treaty was signed. The Empress turned to look at him, her black eyes unreadable. You took a great risk, she said quietly. If we had chosen war instead of peace, your world might be ash now. Yes, Han-Wu agreed. But we would have made you pay for it. And you knew that. That's why you chose peace. Perhaps? The Empress was quiet for a moment. 12,000 years is a long time to remember. Most species forget their past. Humanity did not. We couldn't forget, Hyun-woo said. What happened on Earth shaped us, made us stronger, made us vigilant. In a way, your ancient invasion prepared us to stand against your modern empire. The Empress's expression might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with her alien features. Ironic? We created our own opposition. History is full of such ironies. The signing ceremony concluded. Ships began moving through the new trade routes. Human merchants started visiting Valthrine worlds. Valthrine scholars came to Earth to study the archaeological evidence of the ancient colony. Slowly, carefully, two former enemies began building something new. 2 years after the treaty was signed, Dayun gave a lecture at Seoul University about the ancient Valthrine invasion. The auditorium was packed with students. Eager to learn about the dramatic events that had nearly led to war, a young student raised her hand. Professor Dayun, what if they come back again? What if in another 12,000 years they forget the treaty and try to invade again? Dayun smiled. Then we'll remind them, again, that's what humanity does. We remember. We adapt. We survive. And we never kneel. She pulled up an image showing Earth from space, beautiful and blue and alive.